Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And at the very top of the show, Joy told me she has a new thing to open the show. So, Joy, it is over to you.
So it's kind of a play on, have you ever played like Two Truths and a Lie, Tim? Something like that, right? Where somebody gives you two truths and then you have to pick out the lie.
Yeah, I don't think I've played it, but I've listened to NPR quiz shows that have things exactly like that.
Okay, so what we're going to do is I have picked one from the United States, one from the UK, and there is two or three, or we're going to do two truths and one that's a lie of crazy law. So you know how like all the time they're talking about weird laws, like it's still illegal to ride on Main Street after 12 p.m. in different states and things like that?
Sure.
So I thought it'd be funny to find some British ones and some American ones and see if Tim could guess. And then next week, Tim's got to kind of, it could be any topic you want. It could be Ben and Jerry's flavor names or whatever, but pick two things and let me see if I can figure out what the lie is.
Okay, so you're going to give me two things and I have to pick out the wrong one, or three things?
Let's go with three because it makes it funner. I can organize it better. Okay. I realize I said that back and forth, but it's okay, guys. It's my first time doing it. Don't judge me, internet. All right, so we're going to start with the British ones. And okay, so let me figure out which one's my favorite. When a whale or a sturgeon, like the stingray, becomes beached, it must be offered up to the reigning monarch.
Okay.
Is it illegal to die in Parliament?
Okay.
And is it illegal to carry a plank along a pavement?
I think carrying the plank along a pavement is the illegal one.
It is illegal to carry a plank. So you're correct. That's true. But is it the beached whale or is it to die in Parliament? Which one of those are false?
Oh, I see, which is a false one. Maybe to die in Parliament.
So apparently it's a long-standing myth, Tim, it's correct, that you're not allowed to die in Parliament because the government would have to give you a state funeral. That wouldn't. At least 4 people have died in Parliament, including Guy Fawkes, who was executed on sight.
And remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason, and plot.
Okay, does that have to? I don't know what that. I mean, I've heard that before, but I'm not sure how this relates.
It's Guy Fawkes night.
I don't know who Guy Fawkes is.
He's the guy who tried. He's the guy who tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament.
Oh,
and he's celebrated every year by bonfire night when you have fireworks on the 5th of November.
Tim, I don't know these things. So he tried. When did he try to bomb? Like, when did this happen? I don't know any of these. November 5th, obviously.
Something, I don't know.
Okay, fine, whatever. You know what? Just because I want to, I'm going to do one more British one because they're funner than the US ones. All right. So you got to pick the false one, Tim.
Okay.
Is it illegal to beat a snake? Beat or shake, not a snake. I don't know what snakes have to do with it. It's any carpet or rug in the street. Is it illegal to be drunk in charge of a horse? Or is it illegal to carry out at least 2 hours of longbow practice a week?
I think the false one is longbow practice.
Dang, you're right. So apparently, though, it was at one point, Englishmen aged between 17 and 60 were required to own a longbow and precise practice using it regularly by law enacted in 1541. This law was eventually repealed, but later than you might think, it was on the statutes until 1960.
Yeah, there was a thing a number of years ago where governments and authorities were trying to clean up these weird laws that have been around for many years. Like, it was legal to have your herd of sheep go across Tower Bridge on the 4th Tuesday in April or something. And it was, and people would find these wacky laws and do it just because they could. And then they decided to sort of clean them up a little bit.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. So that was probably somewhere and you read it at some point. So here we go. We'll do one for the United States just because we can.
Okay.
All right. All right, so this is a little bit different. I'm going to give you 3 choices, and you have to pick. Which New Jersey law is totally made up? In Teaneck, it's illegal to spit on the sidewalk. In Mount Laurel, it's illegal to stick gum in someone's hair. In New Milford, it's illegal to release a balloon.
I would probably think the gum in the hair.
Correct.
Ah!
So, it is illegal to spit on the sidewalk, and it is illegal to release a balloon.
But if you want to stick gum in someone's hair, it's a free country, ladies and gentlemen.
So weird. That's why I said this one's a little different. But you know what, though? It makes it so local to us. I do know that it's still technically illegal to like drive on Main Street. That's still like a thing.
Really?
And I don't know why. Yeah, because they said it's something about with the horse and buggy carriages. Back in the day, I guess, when the cars started coming through, there was a lot of horse and buggy carriages on the road, but they didn't want cars coming through.
Do you know one thing that still gets me is that jaywalking is illegal? Because there isn't a similar law in England, I don't think. And people just wander in the road all over the place. And like here, technically, you could get a ticket or be arrested for jaywalking.
The true story, me, Charlie, and my friend Jennifer were going, I don't know where we were going. I think we went to some type of event, some music event or something. We were in Roanoke. And there was no one coming. It's the middle of the night. It's like 1 a.m. And there was a cop. He was across the road. And so me and Jennifer were like, let's just go. We'll just cross. And then Charlie goes, we can't, it's illegal. And the cop goes, not really. No one cares. It's yelled at us across the road. Yep. Anyway,
isn't there like some places in the United States where they start having zero tolerance for laws and then they start arresting people for jaywalking and things like that?
Probably like some type of martial law thing, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
But it is legal if you want to stick gum in someone's hair in New Jersey. So go crazy, Tim.
I've been to New Jersey. I didn't put gum in someone's hair, but I don't know. I sort of regret it. I went to a Walmart in New Jersey and I went to the boardwalk in AC, as they say, around those parts, Atlantic City.
I mean, I have some family in New Jersey. I've been there a few times.
Yeah. Some
cool family. One of them just flew to see a big concert in California. I saw that. They were really excited. So, did you see that thing about the We Are Young festival, Tim? I don't know if you've been following this at all.
Yes, I have. So it was sort of your dream festival, the We Are Young. All the bands that you liked through the ages were part of this festival.
Yes, but I said it's never going to happen.
Yeah. So a bunch of bands pulled out or didn't get paid or something like that. And then night one, there's like a massive storm come through Vegas with these really high winds and they had to cancel the first night.
Mm-hmm. And now supposedly the next few nights. But see, so me and my friends, we were all excited. We're like, we're going to do this. But then we started thinking about it. And there was so many bands, Tim. And like logistically, we wouldn't get to see everybody. It would probably be chaos. You'd probably have to pay $1,000 just to get a burger. You know what I mean? Like, and you'd be out in the middle of a desert. And we're just like, there's something about it that seems very Fire Festival, right? We're like, we can't do this. So now they found the first thing. And so, but what was cool though, is a bunch of people who had bought tickets were in Vegas already. And I'm like, well, at least you're in Vegas. You go do something fun. A few of the bands actually put on free concerts in like inside venues that you could go to and see if you were on the Strip.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
It was just a handful of them, not like some of the major headliners, but a few bands that like you may like to see. They did that. I thought that was cool. And you know what? An inside venue that's much smaller, you're not sitting out in the desert, spending $1,000 on a burger might be funner in the long run.
That's true. I mean, and those casinos are like cities in themselves. I mean, you've been to Vegas, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an entire labyrinth of a city, and it's just like one casino. It's bizarre.
That's because they're trying to get you, Tim, to keep spending your money. It's to confuse you.
Well, of course. That's why there's no clocks in the casinos.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's my little game. And next week, Tim will have to find some two truths and a lie and have me guess. And you can do whatever topic you want, Tim.
Okay. All right. I will come up with something, and we will have some fun and games at the top of the episode.
Tim was better at it than I was hoping. Maybe it's just my presentation. I don't know.
I've been around, Joy. I understand these things.
Yes, because you're 107.
Ish.
Ish.
I had a birthday recently. Ish.
Oh yeah. Sorry, guys. He's 108 now.
Yeah, change the. It's got an 8 in it, but yeah, you're close. Anyhow,
right.
So this week it's Joy's turn to pick the topic. As ever, I don't know what topic she's come up with, though she tells me she has a lot of information for us, and it may be a two-parter. So, Joy, over to you.
This will most definitely be a two-parter because I'm very excited. This was a topic well, I don't say who, which was given to me by Phil Reese. He had been talking to me about, he wanted me to do this one because he thought I would be very hyped about it. And there's a personal innuendos here that I won't get into, but Tim may realize this is about women in rock.
Oh, fantastic.
So we're going to talk, and I don't have these in any particular order. They're not going historical. They're not going anything like that. They're just the women that I know that are pioneers of rock. They can be in bands. They can be solo artists. Some of them are just guitarists. There are women guitarists who are wonderful. So I wanted to, though, we talked about this in one of our episodes, Tim. How do you define rock? So I brought up the Oxford Dictionary.
Okay.
Just for everybody who knows. The definition of rock, given this is interpretational, but it's a type of popular dance music originating in the 1950s, characterized by heavy beat, simple melodies. Rock and roll was an amalgam of black rhythm and blues and white country music, usually based on a 12-bar structure and an instrument with I mix guitar and bass together, everybody. A guitar, a bass, and drums. So there you go. That is the Oxford Dictionary's version of rock.
And if you could maybe just pop into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland and give them that definition, you can maybe have a chat with them why they induct artists who are not rock, yet they put artists in who are clearly never rockers.
Tim has some thoughts on that one. But if you go back to, what was it, episode 1?
I think it was episode 1.
You can hear more about that. All right. So I picked just a few artists. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through their history because I think it's important we talk about who these people are, where they come from. And then we're just going to talk about the songs that we like. I picked 1 or 2 songs from each artist that I liked, and then Tim could throw in his. So the first one I am going to do is Joni Mitchell.
Okay.
So her real name is Roberta Joan Mitchell. She is a Canadian-American singer, songwriter, and painter. I didn't know she was a painter. And she draws from folk, pop, rock, classical, and jazz. Mitchell's songs typically reflect on social and philosophical ideas, as well as her feelings of romance, womanhood, and disillusionment and joy. That was her own quote. She has received, I didn't know this, Tim, 10 Grammy Awards. And she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1997. The Rolling Stones called her one of the greatest songwriters ever. And I can't think of someone who, when it comes to women and kind of like a folksy kind of feel, that's the first name that comes to mind. Yeah,
I mean, in the realm of sort of singer-songwriter, folk guitar players, singers, that kind of stuff, I mean, people cite Bob Dylan, but I don't know. I think Joni Mitchell comes to mind even before Bob Dylan for a lot of people.
So her history goes, she began singing in small nightclubs in Saskatchewan, Joy. I knew I was going to fail at that word, Tim, and I tried so hard because I've heard it. So it's the Canadian city, everybody. Before moving to nightclubs in Toronto and Ontario, and moved to the United States and began touring in 1965. I'm not sure I realized that. Some of her original songs are Urge for Going, Chelsea Morning, Both Sides Now, and The Circle Game. So the 2 songs that I think are probably her most popular, and actually the 2 songs that I picked, are Big Yellow Taxi and Woodstock.
Yeah, but Big Yellow Taxi, I think, is probably the most iconic Joni Mitchell song for people who are not super into Joni Mitchell. It also has a very unique guitar tuning that's only used on that song. I'm not sure of the tuning itself. I think some of the strings are in unison, but it's very, if you don't tune your guitar how she tuned it on Big Yellow Taxi, it just doesn't sound right.
And that makes sense because it has kind of it is very folksy, but it has a little bit of a pop sound to it, but it's almost, I don't want to say melancholy, but it has like a melodic sound to it that's different than you hear in other music. And her voice is very unique when she sings live. It's very rich. She's got textures. I think when you hear her sing that song live, it's different than when you hear it on the radio for sure.
Absolutely. And Big Yellow Taxi does make an appearance in I'm Alan Partridge.
Which is always important to everyone.
Yeah,
I forgot about that when I was writing.
If I remember, she says, that was Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell, a song where she complained they paved paradise to put up a parking lot, a measure which would actually ease congestion at the outskirts of paradise, something she fails to point out with her blinkered view of the world. Anyway, nice song. You're listening to Up with the Partridge. Aha.
That was amazing.
I mean, I couldn't not do that if Phil suggested this episode and he is listening and he's like, why are you not doing the Partridge reference? But anyway, Phil, there you go. It's all done. Check.
All right. So that was very important for Tim. So she was just one of the many, many female artists that I'm going to go through today. The next one I'm going to talk about is someone that I was not very familiar with, but she came up when I was doing my research a lot. And I sent Tim 2 of her songs in case he wasn't familiar with her, because she's amazing. And if he isn't, he needs to be familiar with her. So this is Wanda Jackson. So she was born October 20th, 1937, is an American singer-songwriter. And since the 50s, she's recorded and released music in rock, country, and gospel. She's among the first women to have a career in rock and roll, recording a series of 1950 singles that helped her get the name the Queen of Rockabilly. She also counted among one of the first female women of country music as well, because she does have a little bit of both if you listen to her stuff. She's from Oklahoma City. She actually started playing on a radio show there. And then she went on to begin touring with Elvis, which is really cool. I didn't know that. I'm assuming maybe she's like an opener. And apparently Elvis Presley is who encouraged her in that rockabilly style. So she was signed with Capitol Records. She was given full permission to record both country and rockabilly, which is crazy. And she has many hits. I sent 2 to Tim right before we started. So I want to get his opinion on them. What did you think of the 2 songs I sent you?
Well, Wanda Jackson doesn't have a sort of name recognition for me, though. Maybe I've heard of Wanda Jackson, but it's not someone like him. I think, oh, it's that person and that song. However, when I play those 2 songs that you sent me, I recognize both of them.
That's what I had happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And she has a very distinctive voice. And then, like you say, it's that kind of sort of country rockabilly sound. And the minute I heard those songs, I was like, oh, it's this one.
Yes. So the 2 that I sent Tim were Mean Mean Man and Tunnel of Love. Those were just the first ones that popped up. I mean, she had thousands of hits, but she has, I don't even know how to explain it. She kind of does like, what's the piano player that we were talking about last week that I couldn't remember his name?
Jerry Lee Lewis.
She has that kind of rugged sound and kind of like, you know what I mean? Where she goes from extremes to different things, but her voice is amazing. And I don't know that she writes her music. I didn't get that far into it, but I would imagine at this time she probably was, because usually that was a thing they were doing in this time frame.
Sure. And I think, I mean, a lot of those people were playing sort of African-American music and standards. So, I mean, I don't know if the songs that you sent me were her original compositions, but it wouldn't surprise me if she was writing her own music too.
Well, I do know that she did write a lot of gospel music as well. That I did read about. I know she was writing quite a bit of gospel music, and she decided she wanted to focus on the gospel circuit after she left Capitol Records for her own personal reasons. But I guess she actually toured in the UK and everything. I'm surprised that I did not know her name. And in 2009, she was inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, there we go. Having listened to her music, she would be worthy of being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Anytime I see that, I'm going to bring that up to Tim. This one was introduced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So that was cool. And for our listeners, like, if that name doesn't ring a bell, don't feel bad. Me and Tim didn't know either. But I guarantee you, when you go pull up her songs on the YouTubes or something, you'll hear it. You'll know it.
Yeah, it's like, even if you don't know that particular song, when you hear her start singing and the sort of the instrumentation, it's like, oh, it's this. I know this.
Well, and I grew up in a household where my grandmother on Sundays would come over, and the Grand Old Opry played in my house on Sunday mornings. So I'm sure some of those old Opry things had her on it. I just didn't put a name to the face. And I mean, her guitar playing, her picking style, she's just really cool, honestly, Tim.
Sure.
She's really cool. So the next one is somebody that I'm sure we are all very familiar with, so I had no need to send it to Tim before the episode. It's Bonnie Raitt.
Bonnie Raitt is fabulous. I was actually listening to an interview with Bonnie Raitt this morning on NPR. And if we've mentioned before, Bonnie Raitt is such an amazing guitar player. Her slide guitar playing is probably one of the greatest styles, and she's probably one of the greatest slide guitarists of all time.
So when I was researching her, they actually say she's an influence for a lot of guitar players. Like, there was a list of people she's influenced, but she's played with the Pointer Sisters. She's played with Prince. She played with Jackson Browne. There was just a list of different people she had played with and or influenced with. Session music, background, stage, whatever. She literally had played with tons and tons and tons of people that I was unaware of at all.
Yeah, so, and she's been making music since the 70s, the early 70s. And it was only sort of in the early 90s that really she became sort of famous, if you will, because she was out there just doing gigs, releasing albums. And if you're into Bonnie Raitt, you listen to Bonnie Raitt. But there was an album that she came out with in the 90s, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that was sort of the point from there on where everybody knew who Bonnie Raitt was.
It's probably either Luck of the Draw or Longing in Their Hearts.
Luck of the Draw, that is the one.
91 and 94. So she's a blues singer and guitarist. She does say she's more bluesy, which she is. In 1971, so Tim was right on his year, she released her self-debuted album. Following this, she released a series of critically acclaimed albums that incorporate elements of blues, rock, folk, and country. She's a frequent session player and collaborator, which is what I was saying, with tons of artists. We could be here for days if we went through every artist. In 1989, after several years of limited commercial success, like Tim was saying, she had a major hit with her 10th studio album, which was, Nick of Time might be the one you're thinking of.
Yeah, I think it's Nick of Time and Luck of the Draw. Maybe it was Nick of Time. Yeah.
Nick of Time, then it's Luck of the Draw, then Longing in Their Hearts. So either way, that one won her first Billboard 200 chart and her Album of the Year Grammy. And it's actually in the Library of Congress for preservation with the National Recording Registry, which I thought was cool. Luck of the Draw and Longing in Their Hearts were also multi-billion-dollar albums, which is why, they generated tons of singles. It's hard to tell, including Something to Talk About, Love Sneaking Up on You, and I Can't Make You Love Me, which I picked I Can't Make You Love Me as my favorite song by her. And then Bruce Hornsby is on the piano, which I did not know until I was doing this.
Wow, that's interesting. Love Sneaking Up on You is probably my favorite Bonnie Raitt song. Certainly, because I think that one comes from Nick of Time, I think.
Yeah.
But I have an album of hers, and I can't think of the name of the album offhand. It's one from the early 2000s. But she does a cover of In Excess's Need You Tonight.
That's cool.
And it is... the original is great, with the riff and everything, but she sort of does it in a kind of more of a laid-back bluesy style, and it really works. I would say it's probably, for me, better than the original, in all honesty.
Well, we've talked about, and our certain friend from Australia will hate me for this, I'm not as up on my In Excess as I should be. So, I probably would say the same. I thought it was cool, and you may know this, Tim, because you were just talking about her guitar playing. She was placed on the 100 Greatest Guitarists of All Time by the Rolling Stones.
And she should be, because as I said, her slide playing is so iconic. And I may have mentioned before, people talk about Derek Trucks and people talk about Duane Allman, but they also talk about Bonnie Raitt.
That's awesome. And she seems like, and this is strictly not related to her music at all. When I hear her talk and stuff, she seems like a very humble person. Yeah. And down to earth person.
Yeah. The NPR interview I was listening to this morning, she was talking about how when during the lockdown period, she couldn't gig, and she was like doing concerts from her home on acoustic guitar. And she said, she's very frustrated and she couldn't gig. But she said, well, at the end of the day, she said, I got a roof over my head and I'm fine. She said, there's a lot of people worse off than me.
Yeah, and that's always nice, because you see, I hate to say this, I'm not going to judge them, because if you're a musician or you're a celebrity and you're used to your day-to-day, it's hard to have to stay home, right? But sometimes it's hard for people like me who live in a 2-bedroom to see someone with a multi-billion-dollar house with tennis courts and a pool complaining about how bored they are.
Oh, 100%.
You're like, seriously? I'm stuck at I can't even, when me and Charlie had to work from home for 3 months together, I was ready to choke him. I could not take it. I was like, if you do not get out of this house. I am interesting when I work. Sometimes I listen to music, Tim, but when I work, it's usually silent. I just keep it silent. I just like to focus, whereas Charlie needs constant stimulation. I don't. And so our working styles did not mesh well in the same house.
I have to have music playing when I'm working, because I find it helps me concentrate. And secondly, my ears ring so bad. And if I'm in a room that's completely silent and I'm trying to concentrate, I'm just hearing in my ears, and I can't do that. I don't know. I just like having my tunes during the day.
I listen to a little bit of music, but he wants TV shows or something like that, constant stimulation. I can't listen to I can't listen to podcasts at work. Some people do that. I can't.
I want to concentrate on the podcast. I can't concentrate on the podcast if I'm trying to work.
It depends on the podcast too. Some of them I can, some of them I can't. So anyway, moving on to another one of our lovely ladies. This is another one Tim will be very familiar with. This is Nancy Wilson from Heart.
Yes, absolutely. The Wilson sisters from Heart. I mean, the Heart have such a great catalog because I mean they go from like the 70s stuff like Barracuda and all those things, and then they had their 80s power ballads. Alone.
I know. Alone is my favorite Heart song, and then it's These Dreams, Crazy on You, and What About Love. So I picked more than just, I couldn't pick just one with them. So basically her history, for those who are familiar, she is an American musician, and she rose to fame alongside with her older sister Anne as a guitarist, backing and occasional lead vocalist in the band Heart. Raised in Washington State, Wilson began playing music as a teenager. During college, she joined her sister, who had recently become the singer of Heart, the first hard rock band fronted by a woman. Heart released numerous albums throughout the late 70s and 80s. The albums Dreamboat Annie and Little Queen generated chart singles as Magic Man, Crazy on You, and Barracuda. The band also had commercial success with their 8th, 9th, and 10th studio albums, Heart, Bad Animals, Bridget, which were released in 85, 87, and 90. And Heart has sold over 35 million copies. Wilson was lauded for her guitar playing. Notes its blending elements of Flamenco. I don't know what that word is, Tim. F-A-M.
Flamenco.
Okay, what Tim said, and classical guitar style with hard rock. What does that mean as far as guitar goes for dumb people like me?
Flamenco guitar is like Spanish guitar, like where you play like with your finger,
like a picking pattern type thing.
Yeah, it's flamenco. It's played on a nylon strung acoustic guitar, like Spanish.
Thinking
guitar.
of just like a flamingo with its head in the sand, and I'm like, what does that have to do with guitars? But that's not.
I thought you said Flacavento. Wasn't he like a political candidate?
I probably did because I was like, what the heck is this? I've never seen that. I loved Flacavento, so probably. Anyway, so classical guitars. I can't even say it anymore. I'm laughing. Okay. Composure, Joy. In 2016, Gibson ranked Wilson the 8th greatest female guitarist of all time. She's also an accomplished singer, she led lead vocalist in These Dreams, which became Heart's first #1 single on the Billboard 100s. And in 2013, Wilson was inducted into
the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she is worthy of being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I will say, though, Alone is my favorite Heart song.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I liked it when it came out, and it was one of those songs that we used to play at the jam night. When we had the jam night in the Fox and Pheasant in West Drayton, that was in sort of the rotation of songs, and there was a couple of singers that used to do that. And the bit goes, "Till now."
Tim was not one of them, obviously.
No, I learned how to play the guitar part, and that is what I should be doing, not singing it.
I would have probably been singing, but I actually think my favorite part is the opening, like piano kind of. I hear the ticking of the clock. I'm laying here. You know what I mean? I like the opening of it. It's just so, and then the way it builds, of course, and then you've got Tim screaming that at you.
Yes, till now,
nailed it. But I would say that's probably my favorite. I mean, These Dreams is great too, but I can't hear it anymore because there was a stupid commercial and it was about beans, like BEANS. And it said These Beans. Did you ever hear that commercial?
Was that like some kind of currency or something? Beans?
These Beans. It was like, I thought it was a commercial. Hold on, I'm giving a Google, guys.
What was that?
These Beans. Maybe it was a Family Guy reference, but I think it was on Family Guy. These Beans, it's a riff on These Dreams, also played by Heart. It was on Family Guy.
Oh,
they were back in the day. No, but you're right. They were using it as like a currency because it's like taking place in medieval times. But they sing These Beans over and over again in that episode. And now every time I hear it, that's all I hear. That's gone.
Maybe you should replace it with What About Love, which is a similar song.
Oh, God, now you're... Wait. I just realized how similar they are.
They're very similar. It's almost as if the record company said, you had a hit with this song. Maybe you need to have a hit that's almost exactly the same.
because actually this What About Love is the last one I put on there. But I have never in my brain, when you saying that, like I can hear it exactly the same. Well, dang, Tim, I don't know how I'd ever noticed that till you did that.
Well, do you know what? I mean, that's a precedent that record companies set because like Eric Clapton, like Derek and the Dominoes, Layla, he had that hit and it has a very particular format of how it works and there's a key change in it and stuff like that. And then many years after the fact, the record company said, you had a hit with Layla. We need one that's exactly the same. And he wrote the song Bad Love, which follows the same format with the same changes and it has a guitar riff in it and the breakdown and everything.
I mean, I guess it makes sense, though, because humans like familiarity, right? Like we just do that naturally. And simple kind of songs, I don't know if simple or just like that simple kind of 4x4 pattern or whatever it is, works very well with music. So maybe that's why record companies think it. Or they're just like, this did really well. Let's see if we can do it again. I don't know.
People like it. Let's make more of them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of true, though, if you look at how many songs did we talk about, Tim, have C, D, and G over and over repeat.
I mean, there's only so many chords at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, and so I kind of get it. If I were, and the other thing is if you're putting something out there, do you want to take the risk of something new and something fresh that no one's going to like when you need money, or do you want to do what's familiar or what's going to make you money?
That is very true.
There's my theory on it. All right. So we just talked about Nancy Wilson, not Williams, from Heart. And then we talked a little about her sister, Anne, who's also an amazing musician. Mm-hmm. She's not on this particular list, but don't forget about her because she's awesome too. The next one we're going to talk about is one of Tim's favorites that has been talked about a little bit off and on, but we have not spoken on her as an artist. This is Debbie Harry.
Oh, Debbie, the fabulous Debbie Harry from Blondie.
So, those who don't know, Blondie is not her name. It is the name of the band. Mm-hmm. I feel like she is associated as Blondie as herself, but she is not Blondie. So, they had 4 songs that reached number 1 on the U.S. charts between 1979 and 1981. She was born in Miami, Florida. Harry was adopted as an infant and raised in New Jersey. After attending college, she worked various jobs as a dancer, a Playboy bunny, a secretary. And before her breakthrough in the music industry, Harry co-formed Blondie in 1974 in New York. The band released its first debut album in 1976 and released 3 further albums between then and 79, including Parallel Lines, which spawned 6 singles, including Heart of Glass. Their 5th album, Auto American, afforded Harry and the band further attention, spawning hits such as The Tide is High and Rapture, and then later is considered the first rap song, I did not know this, to chart at number 1 in the United States.
Yeah, because it's not so much of a rap, it's more of a spoken word section in the middle. But yeah, maybe she was very much a pioneer in that respect, because I didn't hear a lot of spoken rap stuff at that point.
Well, that's really cool, though, because I looked through all this, but I didn't read everything word for word. I did not pick up on that, so I just read it out loud. That just adds an extra little something special to her. And then she went in to do kind of a solo career. I don't know. I mean, she had a few little hits here and there. Her solo career didn't really take off. And then I actually think, didn't the Blondie reunited in the 90s, correct?
They did. They did a song called Maria, which was their big comeback song. And I can tell you, in Moroccan Soul, we used to cover Maria. And in fact, I recorded that song on a demo with Moroccan Soul.
So one thing about Blondie is, we were talking about Bonnie Raitt and things like that earlier. I have been one to sing a lot of those type songs, and Tim's heard me sing many times. In my vocal style, it works, right? That's type music. Mm-hmm. I could not sing a Blondie song if my life depended on it. Her voice and the way I don't know if it's her falsetto, I don't know if it's the sound of her voice, but it takes a very special person to do a cover of a Blondie song.
Yeah,
Debbie Harry.
A lot of her songs are in the sort of the high register, but then you get songs like Atomic when she's actually very low.
she's very talented. I mean, I would say she's probably a mezzo soprano, which means she could do a little bit of both. But there's just like a tone to her voice and a quality of her voice that does not mesh well with everybody. And that's what makes her so distinct. Now, I picked my favorite song from her Blondie days as One Way or Another.
That is an absolute classic. That's even got like a reggae sort of beat to it, or like maybe not reggae, like kind of a two-tone ska type thing going on.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, that the intro at the beginning. So the reason I picked that, I feel like that's one of those songs that's been covered by everybody and their sister at this point. But her version is the number one version in me. Period. End of story. The only other version that I always think of when I think of it, and I made you listen to it, was Sabrina's version on the Sabrina album. Was it Joan Hart? That was something. But that is my favorite, probably, song. I mean, I love like the Tide is High and stuff, but I feel like those are you hear more often. And then from her solo career, have you ever heard the song French Kissing in the USA?
Yes, that was a big hit in the UK. And in fact, that's the song I was going to mention. But yeah, that was huge. When that came out, Debbie Harry's French. And I think at the time she was going under the name of Deborah Harry because she wanted to be a serious solo artist.
Well, I don't know that it was really that popular here in the United States. I feel like that's probably more of a UK hit for whatever reason. But I really like that song from her solo career.
Well, maybe it has the novelty aspects of saying French kissing in the USA, whereas if you're in the USA, maybe it's not a novelty. I don't know.
I didn't really think about that. So, I mean, that's possible. Rapture's another one. I mean, everybody probably thinks of like The Tide is High, I would think would be her number one song. That would be the first thing that comes to mind.
The one that always comes to mind for me would be Call Me.
Oh, yeah. Which will be stuck in my head for the next 6 years. Thanks, Tim. She does have that kind of way, like the songs that she did, especially that during that time period, are very catchy. They're very easily stuck in your brain.
I have well, it's not a fun fact, but this is something I heard on Penn Jillette's podcast. Now, Penn Jillette being one half of Penn and Teller. And he went out with Debbie Harry, I think in the 80s, for a period of time they were together. And they went to like some Pennsylvania state fair or something together. And it was around the time you could go to a booth at a state fair. You could sing a song and then they would cut it onto a record for you as you sang it. And then you take it away. And it's before you could do things like that at home or tape things yourself and stuff like that. So it was a novelty. You'd go in, you'd decide which song you wanted. They'd play the backing track. You'd sing it in the booth. And at the end of it, you'd pay your $10 and they present you with a 45 RPM single of your song. She didn't want to do it, but he convinced her to do it. They went through the book and found a Blondie song, and he convinced her to do it.
That's awesome. So I didn't know that she had kind of for a good 10 minutes, an acting career, too. She was in a few movies.
I didn't know that.
So it says during her little hiatus, right before they got back together in the 90s, late 80s, she embarked on an acting career. She appeared in lead roles in the neo-noir Union City, some horror film called Videodrome she released, and then she went to release her second album, and then she was in another movie it's another horror film called Body Bags. Didn't know.
There we go. I didn't know that.
I mean, it sounds like most of the things she were in were kind of horror-related films. Maybe that was just a genre she liked.
Maybe, I don't know.
Anyway, that was new to me. So she is a woman of many talents, is what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly the amount of music that she has made and all those catchy songs that we just reeled straight off suggests that she has a lot of talent.
Exactly. So I'm going to say this name, but I'm not going to say it. I'm going to let Tim say it because if I say it, I'm going to butcher it. It is the Australian guitarist who played with Michael Jackson and Alice Cooper.
Oh, Orianthi.
Pegris, I guess is her last name.
She doesn't really go by her second name. She's a Slash or a Bono or an Edge. She's just Orianthi.
So she's an amazing guitarist. She's not going to have one we're going to have any particular songs, that she does by herself. But she has played with both Michael Jackson and Alice Cooper. It does say she is known monomousily. I guess that's the term, as Orianthi. She's an Australian guitarist, singer, songwriter. who rehearsed in 2009 with Michael Jackson in preparation for his This Is It concert. So if you ever watched the This Is It movie, she's the female guitarist that's in it. She also performed with Alice Cooper's touring band. Her 2009 debut single, according to You, peaked at number 3 in Japan, number 8 in Australia, and number 17 in the US. Her second album, Believe, received a worldwide release in 2009. The same year, she was named one of the 12 greatest female electric guitarists by Elle magazine. And in 2010, she was Breakthrough Guitarist of the Year, hosted by Guitar International magazine. So my focus was on her guitar playing because from what I understand, she is known to be one of the best.
Yeah, because Michael Jackson for the longest time had a guitar player called Jennifer Batten, and Jennifer Batten is an absolute shred virtuoso.
She's on here. She's on my list.
All right, well, we'll come to that. But anyhow, as I'm leading on to my story, and then when Michael Jackson was putting that band together for that This Is It tour, he became aware of Orianthi. And I mean, she is way up there in talent. As she's on the same level as Jennifer Batten. And, you know, I always feel really sorry in a way for Orianthi because, I mean, you get this gig with Michael Jackson and she's like, guitar players know who she is, but the person in the street doesn't know who Orianthi is.
I didn't know who she was till that came out.
Yeah, so you get this. She's secured this gig with Michael Jackson. They're going to tour the world. Michael Jackson's big comeback tour, and she practices with Michael Jackson, and they're working on everything, and it's great. And then what happens? Michael Jackson dies. Now, I mean, that's incredibly sad, obviously, for all of Michael's family and fans and everything, and it's terrible. But from a career perspective, you think you've latched onto this great thing and it's going to launch you and everybody's going to know who Orianthi is, and then nothing.
See, and I thought that too for the dancers, because all the dancers had to audition, like multiple rounds of auditioning, you know, because I mean, as much as Michael Jackson's a singer, he's just as much into his stage show, his persona, his dancing. So he literally set in on all the auditions for those dancers. This was a once in a lifetime experience to get to perform on stage, worldwide touring. And then, like you're saying, I thought that as well for them. Honestly, for everybody probably on this show, but for those, like you're saying, those people who was going to be their first time performing with him, maybe their first world tour. So a lot of the dancers were younger, and she was still kind of a fresh guitar player. Most people wouldn't have known who she was. I mean, it's not like anyone could have known what was going to happen, but.
No, absolutely. And I will say for guitar geeks out there, she has a signature PRS guitar.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there.
I was like, yeah, I knew that. Moving along.
and I think she's making music with Richie Sambora. I think they're a couple, and I think they're making music together, making beautiful music together.
Somebody give that a Google letter to confirm or deny.
No, I think that is the case.
Oh, that's cool though. I mean, if you look her up, people speak very highly of her. Like, she was on my list. She kept coming up. People are like, she's a little bit of I guess not a newcomer, but you know, she hasn't been playing since like the 60s. But yeah.
Yeah.
There we are. So the next one is somebody else we will be very familiar with. It is Grace Slick from Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah, I love Grace Slick, and I think my favorite Grace Slick moment has to be in the video for "We Built This City," which I just want to say, I want to go on record saying that is a great song. Don't listen to any of these worst 50 songs ever made thing. "We Built This City" is a great song. And if you listen to the lyrics, it is a scathing attack on their record company who are screwing them over.
Wait, I've always loved that song. I mean, I know there's some people who probably think because it's like synthetic pop or whatever, kind of like a change for them. It was a different style change for them. But I've always loved that city. I love that city. Love that song.
It routinely appears on lists of songs like worst songs of all time or worst rock songs of all time. But I mean, I remember when it came out, it was like it may have been a number one. I'm not sure, but it was a popular song when it was out. And then, like, people in hindsight just go, I built this city. No, it's a great song. And the video encapsulates everything 80s. It's like 80s, like, video technology. It's fabulous.
Well, didn't Bernie Taupin write it?
I think he did write it. If he didn't write the music, I think he wrote the lyrics to it.
I'm fairly certain he wrote the lyrics to it. I've always heard that. I will give it a Google now to make it official.
Yeah, who counts the money underneath the bar? Who drives the wrecking ball in two rock guitars?
Song co-writers Martin Page and Bertie Turpin.
There we are. They tell us they need us, but we're the ship of fools.
I mean, I don't know. And I mean, it's literally saying we built this city over and over and over again.
Yeah, well, what they're saying in the song is that they built everything with their
that's
rock
what I
and
mean.
roll.
Like they're telling you that.
Yeah, and the record company, they're just telling them they're worthless.
Plus, it comes off the album Knee Deep in Hoopla.
Yeah, Knee Deep in the Hoopla. Knee Deep in the Hoopla is a line in We Built This City.
Song, yeah, I love it. It's amazing. It's because it's like knee deep in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. Too many runaways, eating up the night. There we go.
The only bit that doesn't make sense, Marconi plays the mamba. Who was Marconi and why was he playing the mamba?
Well, isn't Marconi like a famous something?
Marconi invented the radio.
Oh, yeah. He was like an Italian inventor or something like that.
Yeah, he invented radio.
Maybe that's what they're referencing, though. Like, it's a reference to, like, the radio. Like, he not playing the marimba. Because it says Marconi plays the mamba. Listen to the radio. Like, maybe it's a reference to him inventing the radio, Tim.
It could be. Maybe the mamba. Maybe it's a mamba as in ba-bum-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. So, like, Marconi's radio is playing the mamba, and you should listen to it.
Don't you remember? Yeah,
so you're listening to the radio, and then don't you remember we built this city on rock and roll?
There you go. We just figured it all out for the people, Tim.
Wow. I mean, we could write a paper on this. We could dissect the lyrics to this song with the amazing Grace Slick singing on it. I mean, perfect.
All right. So a little bit on Grace Slick. She is an American singer, songwriter, artist, and painter. Slick was a key feature in the San Francisco's early psychedelic music scene in the 1960s. With a music career spanning for 4 decades, she performed with the Great Society, which is best known for her work with Jefferson Airplane. The subsequent successor bands, Jefferson Starship and Starship. Yes, they changed their names. Anyway, Slick and Jefferson Airplane achieved fame with their 1967 album, Surrealistic Pillow, which included top 10 Billboard hits, White Rabbit, Somebody to Love. She proved the lead vocals on both tracks. She provided the lead vocals on both tracks. She didn't prove anything, guys. I mean, she could sing with Starship. She sang co-lead for the 2 #1 hits, We Built the City and Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. She also released 4 solo albums. Slick retired from music in 1990, but continues to be an active visual in the arts field. So she's like a painter now. And Slick was introduced into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996 as a member of Jefferson Airplane. And I was having a hard time kind of picking my favorite song, but I went with Somebody to Love.
Yeah, I'm a We Built This City man myself, as I may have already said. But the other song, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now, that is a 80s pop classic. Now, quiz for you, Joy. What film was that from?
I don't know.
That would be Mannequin.
Oh, the one with the girl who comes to life.
Mm-hmm.
So, cool story about that Mannequin movie. I didn't know what it was up until probably maybe 5 years ago. And then Victoria Beckham did a carpool karaoke with James Corden, and they made a reference to it where she's with the mannequin. And then it's like a reference to the movie. There's like a whole thing. So the Spice Girls brought that home for me, Tim, is all I'm saying. Perfect. Didn't know it was a thing.
And on the subject of James Corden, who we have spoken about on this podcast, did you hear that he's banned from a load of New York City restaurants because he's not that nice?
Well, he got banned recently by this one. I actually know all the juicy details. So he went to this restaurant, was mean to this waitress, and the guy, like the owner, said, "You leave." And then once he did that, that made national news. Then a couple other restaurateurs or whatever you want to call them were like, yeah, he wasn't very nice to us either. So they unbanned him, and just because he apologized, whatever. And so then he was like making a big thing about how it was out of proportion and he didn't really do anything and blah, blah. But now he's selling his house in LA and moving back to the UK.
Well, I'm very happy he will no longer be in these shorts because he doesn't seem to be a very nice person from what I've read.
His reputation has really taken a toll here recently. It's been like one right after the other. There was this episode because I actually watched a few episodes of this show, not like sit down and watch the show, but like YouTube video, like just little snippets of somebody I liked was on it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there was one where he was doing one of those. Have you ever seen it where they spin the food and you have to answer a question or you have to eat whatever the gross food is?
Yeah.
He was doing it with one of the Kardashian sisters. And one of the questions was, name any one of your cameramen, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't name them.
I know the episode. I've seen it. It's actually with Jimmy Kimmel.
That's what it was.
It was Jimmy Kimmel. And as everyone knows, Jimmy Kimmel's crew is like his family. And everyone in the industry knows about James Corden and how he doesn't treat his crew well. He's not good to people behind the scenes. So, of course, the first time Jimmy Kimmel gets on that show and gets a chance to do it, he's like, name me any name of anyone on your camera crew.
He couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
I thought it was the Kardashians, but it doesn't matter. I've watched a few of them with different people. My favorite one is the one he did with Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler's like, I don't know, I was on drugs like 10 times. But anyway, I thought it was hilarious. But yeah, I was just like, you can't name anyone? Come up with a name. There's got to be a John or a Bob.
Exactly. But the thing is, you're working with these people. You're broadcasting with a camera in front of you. That is your closest person to you. How could you not know who it is? I mean, like when David Letterman had his show, he even used to include his cameraman in comedy bits. I can't remember the guy's name, but he used to come up all the time.
That's crazy to me. And the thing about it is, Tim, how have you not heard his name at least once? So it said, hey, Jim, we're ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And then he gave some kind of wishy-washy answer about, it was a different crew. And it's like, no.
But anyway, so that moment was the moment that it solidified but yeah, he's apparently on his way back to the UK. Sorry to our UK fans. Anyway.
Well, I'm sure our friends in the UK will embrace him warmly.
Supposedly the people, so he tried to hide it. He's got some multi-million-dollar mansion. Yes, I went down a rabbit hole reading all about this. There was a video camera, thank you TMZ, who saw a realtor, some famous celebrity realtor who just keeps everything secret when celebrities don't want everybody, when there's bad turmoil going on. Mm-hmm. There was that and his broker who were going for a lunch with him at his $1 million estate. Then he said, well, with this being the last year and I just really want to get back to the UK. And so he finally admitted this lunch was to sell his house. And it's not going up for auction. They've already got a private bidder and everything.
I mean... It's fine. I mean, if he's going to move, he's going to sell his house. It's fine.
Anyway, so back to, I guess, Women of Rock. That had nothing to do with James Corden. How we got there, I'll never know. All right. So this one is somebody who I have heard the name. I know they are a predecessor to what we know of music as a whole, but this is the first time I've really kind of gotten to the nitty gritty. It is Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Yeah, she's somebody who I wouldn't say was forgotten about for years, but she was maybe like an asterisk in the history books of rock for many years. People would talk about Chuck Berry and people would talk about Jerry Lee Lewis, but they wouldn't really talk about Sister Rosetta Tharpe. But as the years have rolled on, people have sort of gone back and discovered her and realized sort of the genius that she was.
So, and she was, I went back and listened to maybe 3 or 4 songs just to familiarize myself. She wasn't just a guitar player, though. She was a showman. Like, if you saw her play live, she was wonderful. She was orchestrating an audience. She commanded a presence. At one point, there was she just walked on stage, didn't know what song they were going to play. They threw a guitar at her, and she was just like, give me a key. And she just matched them like it was nothing. Like, her ability to play was seamless. Like, she had practiced with them for the last 7 years. You could tell she hadn't. She just went with the flow, and she has that ability, that rhythm, that she can do that. Not everybody can, myself included. I mean, but she's got to be. So what they said from her is she was an American singer and guitarist. She gained popularity in the 1930s and 40s with her gospel recordings. But she characterized this unique spiritual lyrics with an electric guitar. She was one of the first people to do that. She was the first great recording star of gospel music, and was one of the first gospel musicians to appeal to rhythm and blues and rock and roll audiences, later being referred to as the original soul sister or the godmother of rock and roll. She influenced early rock and roll musicians, and this is what the musicians have said, that she was an influence to him. It's Little Richard, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Eric Clapton. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's very obvious that those people were influenced by her. And as I said, it's a shame that she is only getting the kudos that she deserves now, not back then type thing.
So she was also the pioneer of a certain guitar technique, and maybe Tim knows about this, maybe he doesn't. She was among the first popular recording artists to use a heavy distortion on her electric guitar, presaging the rise of electric blues. Her guitar playing technique had a profound influence on the development of British blues in the 1960s. Her European tour with Muddy Waters in 1964, with a stop in Manchester on May 7th, is cited by British guitarists such as Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Keith Richards. I've never really looked into it. I'm not even sure I'm familiar with this concert, but I thought that was super interesting because she doesn't seem like someone to me that I was aware of would have been into the UK scene.
No, I think a lot of artists at that time used to tour the UK. They used to put like package tours together with different artists, and they'd all come over and play. And in fact, when we was talking about Elton John and we was talking about his band Bluesology, and you spoke of a bunch of 60s sort of soul and blues artists that would come over and they would support them. That's how it was often done. You'd have these packages. And later on, you'd have things like the Monkees and Jimi Hendrix being the support act. It was in weird combinations, but it was very popular in the UK at the time to do things like that.
Well, go ahead. Sorry, Tim.
I was going to say, the interesting thing you were saying about her guitar tone being distorted. Now, many people say that Jackie Brenton's Rocket 88 is the very first rock song because it's the first track that features a distorted guitar. And the reason it was distorted is because his amplifier fell over in his truck and it dislodged a vacuum tube. And they went to record and it sounded really distorted, but they had to do it anyway. But I didn't realize that Sister Rosetta Tharpe was actually probably preceded that with her use of distortion.
Yeah, I mean, it says it preceded the rise of electric blues. And maybe at some point, Ted, we might need to find a copy of this tour if we can, if it's on YouTube. I don't know. It's hard to know because of the time frame. But since it was Manchester on May 7th in the 60s, it doesn't give a specific year, but it's cited as one of the greatest concerts by guitarists. So that was cool.
Wow. And I know she played a white Gibson SG Custom with 3 pickups.
It was white, but everything was in black and white, so I couldn't really tell when I was watching the video. So I'll take your word for it. So a little bit more about her, because I really liked going down this rabbit hole, because like you said, she has not gotten a huge, the following that she deserves. So she was willing to cross the line between sacred and secular by performing music of light in the darkness of nightclubs. That's her words. And concert halls with big bands behind her. Thorpe pushed spiritual music into the mainstream, helped pioneer the rise of pop gospel, beginning in 1938 with recording Rock Me with her 1939 hit The Train. Her unique music left a lasting mark on more conventional gospel artists such as Ira Tucker Sir of the Dixie Hummingbirds. I'm not familiar with them, but somebody might be out there. While she offended some conservative churchgoers who foray into the pop world, she never left gospel music. That was her core. And what's interesting is I watched a documentary about, the 60s, there was like that Jesus freak hippie movement. Mm-hmm. That's what they're called. Don't come from the internet. That's just what they're called. And that's what these people were calling themselves because they loved Jesus, but they weren't big into the church. And they had that folksy kind of James Taylor thing going on. Mm-hmm. They talk about that too. They said that it was very hard because I was watching a documentary on it not too long ago. That's how I learned about Amy Grant. That they said that they were hated by some and loved by many because there's a set of people who didn't like seeing that go out into the secular world. That seems crazy to me, but
yeah, and that's what we discussed with Amy Grant, where I only knew Amy Grant from being a pop singer, and I didn't know about her sort of gospel and religious music till way after the fact. And I'm speaking to somebody not a year or so ago, and they said, yeah, at the time when she decided she was going to do secular music, sort of the people who enjoyed her religious music, there's a real backlash to that, saying, well, why are you getting involved into this kind of stuff?
Yeah, and that's what they were saying. And she was on here and she was like, they kind of did, like, they talked about the hippie kind of thing, and then it flowed into her in the 80s and the 90s because she was the big kind of takeaway artist. And she said the same thing. She said that basically in her mindset, she was bringing something she cared about to the masses, but they didn't see it that way. So To each their own. I'm not judging. That's just what they were saying as well. So in 1944, she released Down by the Riverside, which was selected for the National Recording Registry at the U.S. Library of Congress in 2004, which noted that it captures her spirited guitar playing, unique vocal sound, and demonstrated clearly her influence on early rhythm and blues performers, and cited her most influence on gospel, jazz, and rock artists. So I actually went and listened to the Down by the Riverside. That was one of the songs I picked. And then I also picked Didn't It Rain? Both of them were fantastic. I don't know if you ever heard it, Tim, but it was amazing.
Yeah, I went on to a little bit of a deep dive of hers. It was around the time when as I knew you were about to say, she got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
2018.
Yeah, it was around that time I started sort of going and finding some videos and finding some of her music. And yeah, it is very passionate, well played, great stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, it's crazy to me. So we're talking about, she started what? And she's literally born in 1915. And it took to 2018 for her to actually be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And like I said, she was like an asterisk in the footnotes of rock and roll until that point.
I mean, she passed away in 1973 for perspective. So.
Sure.
Anyway, so that was cool. If you haven't heard of her, if you haven't listened to anything, just go on the YouTubes and give her some listens. I think what was even more interesting for me was, yes, she was a good singer. Yes, she was a guitar player, but she had a very early kind of rock and roll presence on the stage. Sure. You didn't see that often in that time period. All right, Tim, how much more time do we got?
I reckon we could probably do 2 more.
All right, I got 2 more right here. Since we mentioned her earlier, I'm just going to go into Jennifer Batten.
Yes.
So Jennifer Batten is a solo artist. She was a guitarist for Michael Jackson and Jeff Beck, and she is the founder of Guitar Cloud Symphony, something like that. So it's like a symposium that she does, and it's dedicated to guitarists. It's really cool. So I found that out when I was looking her up. But basically, she's an American guitarist who worked as a session musician and solo artist from 1987 to 1997. She played on all 3 of Michael Jackson's world tours. Mm-hmm. And from 1999 to 2001, she toured and recorded with Jeff Beck. Batten has released 3 studio albums. Her 1992 debut album was Above, Below, and Beyond, produced by Stevie Wonder's guitarist, Michael Cimbolio. The world beat influenced Jennifer Batten's Tribal Range, which it's called Tribal Range Momentum in 1997, and Whatever, which was released on CD and DVD in Japan in 2007, and then worldwide in 2008. In her early years, Batten began playing the guitar at the age of 8, when her father brought home a Killer Red and Electric Blue guitar. Her early influences were the Beatles, B.B. King, Lightning Hopkins, and Jeff Beck.
There we are. She plays an Ibanez guitar. And for those who don't know of Jennifer Batten, anytime you would have seen Michael Jackson perform in the 80s, and I think into the 90s as well, the lady with the massive blonde hair playing guitar, that is Jennifer Batten.
Yeah, and she played on all 3 of his world tours, like the Bad Tour, my mind's blanking, but all the major ones you can think of when it comes, that's her.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've seen Jennifer Batten perform up close twice, both at guitar shows where she did clinics, both at Wembley. One when I was at school, so it was probably early 90s, and then there was probably one sometime after that. It would have been around the time Michael Jackson was touring, because I'm sure it was a tour stop and the guitar show sort of all landed at the same moment.
I found the names. It's Bad, Dangerous, and History with capital His.
There you go. But I have a sort of claim to fame with Jennifer Batten. So on both occasions, you could meet her after her clinic and get like a postcard signed or a record signed or something like that. And the first time I met her and she signed a postcard, she called me a geek.
Well, I mean, you are kind of like a guitar geek, I guess, if that's what she was referencing.
I was with my friend Rowena, who was the singer of the band I was in at school, and I think we might have been the guitar player Sean as well. We all went up, and I probably asked her a geeky guitar question, and as she was signing my friend's Rowena's card, she goes, "What's with your friend? He's a real geek." So they are claim to fame for Jennifer Batten.
Now Tim's basically Jennifer Batten's BFF, is what we're hearing by and large. They're best friends.
Absolutely. But I will say that she is an absolute guitar virtuoso. And I mean, to play with even with Jeff Beck, and to be at that level to play with Jeff Beck, you have to be an amazing guitar player, or Johnny Depp, one of the two. You either have to be a virtuoso or Johnny Depp. There's no bit in the middle.
I love that you brought that into this. So anyway, what I thought was interesting is she said one of her main influences was Jeff Beck, and then later in life she got to play with him.
Yeah,
how cool was that?
Jeff Beck is probably the greatest guitar player in the world. Certainly in the realm of control of his instrument, he doesn't use a pick. The sheer control of his instrument that he just gets with his fingers is amazing. However, 80% of his music sounds like it comes from a video game.
I mean, that's kind of one of those things, though, because he's a master at his craft, but it doesn't mean that this type of song is for everybody.
No, that's true. Sense? And if you ask any guitar hero, you ask Steve Vai, you ask Brian May, you ask Joe Walsh, you ask anyone, who's the greatest guitar player in the world, they'll probably tell you it's Jeff Beck.
I mean, that's fair. So one thing that I thought was interesting after we were talking about the Michael Jackson and Jeff Beck, she was the one who performed in the Super Bowl halftime show with Michael Jackson to 1.3 billion people. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I suppose because she would have been his touring guitarist at the time, so that would make sense. And
then she was in Jeff Beck's touring band for 3 years, starting in 1999, and appears on his albums Who Else and You Had It Coming. And I could get into all of the kind of little pieces here and there, but Tim's right. Everything that I read, she is just known as being one of the best. So she uses what's known as two-handed tapping technique. That's one that she started. An inspired guitar institution of technology classmate Steve Lynch, who ended up playing with Autograph, and other attending musicians. She literally was like, I think, a student and was so good at this technique that she inspired other students. And now she does a national symposium on like playing the guitar and all guitar things.
Yeah, and to explain what two-handed tapping is, it's what Eddie Van Halen pioneered, and then other players like herself and Paul Gilbert and other, shred guitar players of the day would do. And basically what you do is that you fret with your left hand as normal, and then rather than strum the strings, you tap frets. So
I don't know that I would ever even think to do that.
Yeah, so the classic example would be the intro for Hot for Teacher by Van Halen, for example. That is all two-handed tapping.
Interesting. So let's say they're making a chord with their left hand, and they go to, instead of strumming, they're just going to tap.
Well, it's not so much used on chords, so you can do it on chords. But what you would do is, let's say,
you see my brain trying to process this.
So what you would do is that you would probably fret one finger on one string, you would hammer on with another one on your left hand, and then as you fret that, you would then, if you go in the first fret, the third fret, and the fifth fret, you go 1, 3, and then your 5 would be the tap
to make a shredding kind of sound. Okay, I mean
that's that oversimplifies it. And like Eddie Van Halen used to do eight finger tapping.
You have to oversimplify it for me, Tim. I'm not going to get it. That makes sense, though.
Eddie Van Halen used to do 8-finger tapping, where you do the 2 over the top like this. But I mean, but certainly she took that idea and completely ran with it, and she pioneered the use of using a mute on the first fret. So when you're doing all this tapping stuff, the open strings do not ring.
That's awesome. I mean, everything I saw about her, everybody just was like, she just can do everything, like as far as guitar going. And she's known for doing a lot of, like Tim was saying, shredding and like her own kind of little solos and just being really cool, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, she played everything that needed to be played in the Michael Jackson gig, but I would say she was probably vastly overqualified for that.
I will say, though, if you're going to play and you're a guitarist and you're going to play on a Michael Jackson tour, the bad one was the one for you to be on.
Oh, absolutely. Because you would have been playing Steve Stevens parts on like Dirty Diana and stuff like that.
So the fact that she got to do that was pretty cool. I'll give her that. Also, I mean, who doesn't want to play with Michael Jackson? Even if she's vastly overqualified.
Sure. I mean, she played every part with finesse and style and everything. But if you look at the things that she can do and the talents that she has and the kind of playing that she pioneered, for playing a few rock songs and some funk guitar, she probably was vastly overqualified. But she was playing with Michael Jackson, so you can't go wrong with that.
Exactly. All right. So we only have time for one more artist. And I saved this one for the end of this. Now, this will have a part 2. We will have another episode next week that will be Tim's topic. Mm-hmm. And then following there will be music, Women Who Rock part 2. So that's going to come up because there's so many, Tim. We could, like I said, we could have made this into 10 hours and probably still found more people. And I'm sorry if I didn't get any of your favorites. Please send them to us. Me and Tim would love to shout them out at some point because they don't get enough credit.
Exactly.
So anyway, moral of the story is the reason I left this one for last, you will find out, it's Stevie Nicks.
Hey, Stevie Nicks. I keep meaning to get you a bumper sticker made up that just says Stevie Nicks.
My husband literally has a Cricut and can make one for me. I just need to get him to do it. So anyway, Stevie Nicks, a.k.a. from Fleetwood Mac, she is obviously amazing, but she is an American singer, songwriter, producer, known for her band, her work with the band, and a solo artist. After starting her career as a duo with then boyfriend, Lindsey Buckingham, which we all know that went a little crazy, and towards the end, the relationship's maybe one of the best albums of all time, but they kind of hated each other through it. Releasing the album Buckingham Nicks, it's a little success. Nicks joined Fleetwood Mac in 1975, helping the band become one of the number one best-selling acts of all time, with over 120 million records sold worldwide. Rumors, the band's second album with Nicks, became the best-selling album worldwide at the time, and is certified 20 times platinum in the United States. Probably no shock to anyone. I am a fan of the Rumors album, but I tried to listen to some of their others, and I picked some songs that weren't on Rumors, because I feel like it's gotten a resurgence recently.
Yeah, Rumors is one of those albums where people have got back into vinyl and then they go to Bed Bath & Beyond and, oh, look, they have Rumors for $22. I'm going to buy that. And then it becomes the only one that people buy.
And while I love it, don't get me wrong, it's a great album.
It's timeless, it's flawless, there's great music on it. But as you say, the catalog is much bigger than that.
So in 1981, while the remaining member of Fleetwood Mac, Nicks began her solo career, releasing her studio album Belladonna, which topped the Billboard 200 and has multi-platinum status as well. She has released 8 studio solo albums, which I don't even know I knew that she knew that, and then 7 studio albums with Fleetwood Mac, and selling a certified total of 65 million copies alone with her solo work. So after the release of her first solo album, Rolling Stone named her the reigning queen of rock and roll. I don't know who's coming up with these names.
Well, I thought maybe there can only be one queen of rock and roll at the time. It's like the British queen. There can only be one.
So anyway, Nicks was named one of the 100 greatest songwriters, which is cool. She is a songwriter of all time, and one of the 100 greatest singers of all time by the Rolling Stone. Her Fleetwood Mac song "Landslide" and "Dreams" were latter being the band's only number 1 hits in the United States. I didn't know that. Did you know those were the only ones?
I didn't know that.
The other ones went, they went up the charts, but they were never number 1. So anyway, together with their solo hit "Edge of 17," which has which has been included in the Rolling Stones list of 500 greatest songs of all times. She is the first woman to have been introduced twice into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. One as a member of Fleetwood Mac, and then one as her own solo artist.
Wow.
There you go.
It must be said, you mentioned the song "Edge of 17." Now that is obviously a solo song for Stevie Nicks, but that song is so good.
I can't think of it anymore, though. Thank you once again, Family Guy. There's an episode where he's wearing a very flowy Stevie Nicks little dress, and he's in the audience. Peter Griffin is with Meg, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna play Edge of 17. Everybody back up! I gotta have twirling room." And then it starts, and he just starts spinning, and it's flowing everywhere, so it's perfect. Because that's what happens when Edge of 17 comes on. Let's be honest.
Well, I have a question for you, though, Joy. So we made a corporate video where we used to work, and it was about printing in color and stuff, but that's beside the point. But Joy was the star of this video.
Oh, God.
And she did a lot of twirling. Now, was your twirling influenced by this Family Guy Stevie Nicks thing, or was this independent twirling?
I mean, I probably was very close to the way he looked in it. Maybe it was a subconscious influence. I don't know. I will say, everyone, I have a lot of complaints about being forced to twirl on camera, and here's why. I was in a very narrow space, and I kept getting yelled at that I was twirling out of the camera. But when you're twirling around and around and around, you have there's no way your brain knows in what world you are in to know if you're in the camera view.
That's the thing. You were very free with your twirling. The constraints of the camera didn't really work for you. You was just being at one with the twirl.
For those who don't know, I think I probably twirled for a good 40 minutes until they got what they needed because I kept twirling out of the camera. But I can't work under these conditions, is what I told them. And then they didn't get me only brown M&Ms. It was a whole problem. I called someone. It was in my rider, Tim. I can't. But yes, that maybe I was very flowy with my twirling, and I was almost sick. And there was a lot of papers thrown all over the ground. We had to pick up after that.
And there was a bit at the end of the video where we had you skipping and skipping and skipping and skipping.
Still skipped out of range.
Yeah, we didn't need that much skipping. And I will tell you now, exclusively, whilst you were skipping, I said to Ross, shall we just pick the camera up and go?
Rude. I skipped for a really long time. I was sweating by the time we were done with that. Because I was twirling, I was smelling flowers. I think there was a time where I was jumping, that I was skipping.
I will say, if anyone knows me or Joy personally, and you want to see this video, I can send you a private link of it. I'm not going to post it publicly. If anyone is really interested, wants to see Joy's skipping and twirling, contact us directly and I'll send it to you.
Did you do the voiceover in it, Tim? I can't remember.
I did. I said, start living again.
I started to watch it for 30 seconds. I was like, I can't watch this. So I closed it. I forced myself to eventually.
I did do the voiceover for it. It was a lot of fun.
Anyway, that was a fun day, and I have been in numerous videos from the IT department, but that one took the cake. Though I'm not going to say much more. All right, so back to Stevie Nicks. So she has won 8 Grammy. She has garnered 8 Grammy nominations. Doesn't say she won. She garnered them. So, I mean, she was nominated at least 9 times. No, 8 times, not 9 times, Joy. 2 American Music nominations as a solo artist. She's won numerous awards with Fleetwood Mac, including a Grammy Award for Album of the Year for Rumors in 1978. I'm talking about twirling and I can't get my words straight. Everybody garnered 8 Grammy nominations as I stumbled all over that. So I picked a song that I think is kind of, you don't hear it everywhere. I didn't think about it, but it's like, it's everywhere. The song everywhere.
Yeah, that's from Tango in the Night. That's a great song.
Well, and I just don't know. I'm not even sure people know who was, like, I don't know that they associate it with Stevie Nicks.
Probably not. I don't know.
Because it seems like, for me, it's a little bit different than her normal kind of thing. Unless I'm crazy. What do you think?
Well, Tango in the Night is an 80s album, and it has a lot more of that sort of 80s production sheen to it than Rumors had. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, I think it's not a song that people necessarily associate with her. But it's such a great song.
And it's another one that will be stuck in your head. And the music video is quite strange to me, though. Have you ever seen the music video?
No, I don't think I have.
It's like, they're like, it's like set in older kind of, almost like medieval times. And all I remember is this really creepy looking guy with a beard and a pottery wheel. Oh. And he's like cleaning dishes. And I don't know. It's very weird. But that was my number one that I picked. And then my second song I picked, I mean, I love The Chain, but I didn't want to put it on there because it's like, cliche. But I put Don't Stop, which was written by the vocalist and keyboard player, Christy McVie.
Yeah, Don't Stop Again. It's an absolutely fantastic song.
Mm-hmm. So those were the 2 I picked. I mean, like you said, we probably could name 10 just off the top of our head. And Landslide is one of those songs that's been covered about 40,000 times now.
Here's the thing about Don't Stop. Now, maybe this is a Mandela effect thing, but it only maybe affects me, though. It may affect you.
Okay.
So Fleetwood Mac played Don't Stop at Bill Clinton's inauguration ball.
They did.
Okay. Did you remember Bill Clinton jamming with them on saxophone on that track?
That might just be a you thing, Tim. I don't remember that.
Yeah, because I could have sworn that happened, and apparently it didn't.
Now, I do know Bill Clinton was on, what's the late night show host that you loved?
David Letterman.
He was on there one time playing the saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. And he's a good saxophone player.
Yeah, he's not a bad saxophone player, but I don't know. I could have sworn he was jamming on Don't Stop. I even remember the bit where he walked on stage and everyone cheered and he's playing a sax solo, and that didn't happen. So,
for not to get into political things, but my mother was very excited that night that he was inaugurated because she had voted for him. Don't come for me, Internet, it's just the truth. And I was young. Well, you have to remember, I was a child when this happened. And I distinctly remember my mom, the night he got elected and then the night of the inauguration concert, she let me stay up late to see it because she was really excited when they announced, he was officially the winner. I remember I got to sleep on the air mattress in the living room. Or it wasn't an air mattress. It was just a regular mattress. But I didn't have to sit in my room because Mom let me stay up and watch the election results with her. And then during the inauguration, when they had all the musicians, she had it on the TV. And I remember staying up late and getting to sleep on the mattress that night as well.
There we are.
True story. Those are just very distinct memories in my mind. Because I was like, what, 5, 6?
Yeah, and I was in my mid-50s at that point.
Yes, Tim. But anyway, no, he was actually 74. Everyone.
There we go.
All right, so that is the end for now of Women Who Rock. We will do part 2, but we'll have a kind of a little break, and Tim will have another topic for everybody next week. Do you have anything you want to leave the people with?
Just be kind, everybody.
I support that. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you later. Bye-bye.
Tonight we got another day to love.